Max Verstappen took pole position at the Mexican Grand Prix. Now, that's not exactly news, neither is it a big surprise at this point that Supermax, the two-time world champion, who's in the most dominant car of the year, is racking up pole positions. What is newsworthy, however, is the fact that both Mercedes cars actually ended up finishing second and third in the qualifying session that took place at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico City. Now, the main reason why this is so newsworthy is because, generally speaking, Mexico has been a venue that the Mercedes have struggled in. And what's worse is this year they haven't really had the car to actually, even be a regular podium competitor, never mind a race winner. They've won no races so far this season, and there's very much danger that this could be the team's first winless season since 2012 or 2011 rather. No, 2012. Any which way, the main thing which we have to focus on is the fact that both the Mercedes have actually done relatively well to get themselves in good positions to actually win the race, and perhaps more importantly, actually ensure that that win drought of this season comes to an end. But how exactly is it that Mercedes have suddenly become so good at this particular circuit? Why have Ferrari, the team that were actually competing against Red Bull, struggled as badly as they have at this particular circuit? And do the Mercs actually stand a chance of springing an upset win? Well, that's something that we're going to look at in this particular video. But first, let's quickly go over what exactly happened in qualifying in terms of the results of the teams. Now, Russell and Hamilton finished second and third, and in fact it so easily could have been a Mercedes 1-2 if not for a very good lap from Max Verstappen. It actually took a pretty good effort from him towards the end to actually grab that pole position, because without that it would not have actually been possible for them Red Bull to actually get this pole, or in fact even be on the front row, because Sergio Perez, the home hero, who's Red Bull's other driver, is only in fourth position. As for the Ferraris, well, it's not been a great weekend for them, although to be fair, that was expected, and we will come to why that's the case in just a bit. But as of now, Carlos Sainz only 5th place, Charles Leclerc only 7th place. Not exactly a good time to be a Ferrari fan in the Mexican Grand Prix. But why exactly is it that the Mercedes have suddenly gained so much in terms of car performance at this particular circuit? The answer is, in fact, the uniqueness of this circuit. Although I wouldn't say uniqueness in terms of, it's not the only circuit in this bracket, but the Mexico City circuit is on a very high altitude, and that in fact is one of the reasons that this car has suddenly started to look like a race winner. Why is that the case? Well, because the circuit as it is has 25% less air density than usual sea level. So what that does is, normally if the air density is good, then your car has to be aerodynamically in perfectly tuned condition to actually be fast. The Mercedes on normal conditions do not match the Red Bulls in terms of straight line speed. However, here, the altitude, it actually helped both of the Mercedes drivers to kind of level the playing field and actually be pretty much on pace, although not by that much of a difference, with the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. Now, what actually is the case here is that this car covers up the worst traits of the W13. What exactly are the worst traits of this car? Well, the car, aside from actually being, the minimal side pod design, which a lot of fans are actually calling for the change, the car has in fact been very draggy when it comes to straight line speed, despite the fact that it's very good on downforce, so actually goes well in the curves. But what happens in a place where the air density is less is that the drag, which was, no pun intended, dragging the car down, is now pretty much gone. And so the car can actually move at a far easier pace. So the playing field is very level. And that is the main reason why the Mercedes have done as well here. Downforce wise, they're good. Straight line speed wise, they are almost as good as the Red Bulls, which means they actually were fighting them tooth and nail throughout the qualifying session. Now let's actually switch tack a bit and look at the Ferraris and why exactly it is that they've struggled. We know for a fact that Ferrari, despite reliability and strategic issues, have actually, generally speaking, had a fast car, especially so in qualifying. In Mexico, however, they were quite clearly off the pace set by both the Red Bulls and the Mercedes. Why exactly is that? Well, it's down mainly due to the configuration of their engine and specifically the turbo unit which they use in the engine. Now, the turbo that they have is slightly smaller than the one that most teams run. It does give them an advantage in terms of getting more revs into the engine quickly, and thus allows them faster acceleration through the corners. But in a circuit where the altitude is high and therefore the air density is less, you need an engine with a bigger turbo to get those revs up much quicker, to actually charge up the battery way quicker than the current turbo does for the Ferrari engines. That is the primary reason why Ferrari have actually not been, good at this circuit this season. And to be fair, if you'd heard what Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc had to say beforehand, it was something that they were expecting. It was a problem that they had anticipated would happen at this particular circuit, and they expected it to be specific to only the Mexico City track. They will, of course, hope for better results in the last two races of the season, but as of now, these two, this particular race, it's all about damage limitation and getting the maximum points that they can. Now, we have to come to the real question, which is, can the Mercedes actually break their win drought? Is there a possibility that the W13 can finally win at least one race this season? Now, it is worth noting before we answer that question that Mexico has its own fair share of struggles when it comes to, raceability. Generally speaking, overtaking is not the easiest thing in the world to do at the Mexico City track, mainly of course due to, as I said, higher altitude. So generally speaking, the dirty air would be a lot more prevalent in cars of the previous generation. And it is worth noting though that those previous generations cars are in no way as raceable as the current generation of ground effect cars, which, if you've been watching this season's races, you'll see are able to follow efficiently much better. So this circuit would be a real test to see whether that raceability is something that can translate even to a track that's as tough for overtaking as the circuit in Mexico is. Now, if Mercedes are to win this race, and I do say this with a big if, because again, there are a lot of caveats and we don't quite know what can happen on race day, they will have to take inspiration from the kind of race that Verstappen put in last year in 2021. Now, of course, if you remember, he didn't start on pole, but what did happen was that he ended up taking the lead into the first corner and then held off the other drivers, because again, overtaking not that easy at that particular circuit. Will that be the case this time around? We probably don't know, because again, we don't know how easy or hard it is to follow these new cars in race conditions. But the hope, if you're a Mercedes fan, is that they can jump Verstappen early, get through that first corner, which is a very long straight, and then get to the multiple slower and medium corners, which is where their car will be strongest, and hopefully start building up a bit of an edge. That will be the key if you're Mercedes, if they have to actually get that all-important first race win of the season. And that's it for this particular video. Let us know in the comment section if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course don't forget to tap that bell icon so you know when we're going live or uploading a new video for you guys. Then you can go ahead and follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and last but not least, don't forget to download the AajTak app. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, I hope to see you with us through the day. Lots of stuff coming up on this Super Sunday, but for now, goodbye.